if you think about the 6 or 7% interest rate, I guess that student loans are running at these days, and you compare that to the compound effects of spending time with your kids, right? I mean, time with your kids is paying like 25 or 50% interest, like real human interest in attention. And in my mid 50s, I'm looking back on my life and I'm thinking, how did I do? And I'm not looking at my bank balance. I'm looking at the relationship that I have with my children and the rest of my family.
Welcome to the Physician Family Financial Advisors podcast, where physician moms and dads like you can turn today's worries about taxes and investing into all the money you need for retirement and college.
Hello, physician moms and dads. I'm Nate Reineke, certified financial planner and primary advisor.
And I'm Ben Utley, also certified financial planner and the service team leader here at Physician Family Financial Advisors. Nate, usually we have some friendly banter at the top of the show before we get to the listener questions. Do you have anything to share?
We didn't. I don't, except for I'm right in the thick of it with I feel like everybody, all the families out there with young kids like mine, we're all experiencing the same thing, which is like we're kind of getting close to like fun summer. Kids are kind of getting tired of school, but not really. So we still have kind of a bit left. And I dropped my 6-year-old off at school the last 3 days, and he's just crying every day. And I don't know if I should feel good about that, like he likes his dad, but he doesn't want to leave him, or bad about that. That's what's been going on in my house.
Well, no matter how you feel about it, it'll change before it's all over with.
That's right. I had a teacher come do well check with me. I'm like, let's see if it keeps happening. And like on Monday, he'll probably be happy that.
I don't know how it is for you, but for me, it's like musical chairs. I mean, 1 minute, my daughter would be a mama's girl, and then she'd be a daddy's girl, and then she was a mama's girl. And it's like, I just wondered, like, when the music stops playing, how will it end up? Whose chair will she be in? And I still don't remember how it is, but I think they're closer to their mom than they are to me, but it ain't because I didn't try.
Yeah. Well,
all right.
It's always fun when people will apologize to me profusely when we're on video calls, and they're like, I'm so sorry. I'm like, believe me, I get it. When their kids are running around acting crazy, I'm like, oh yeah, mine are upstairs wrestling right now.
Nice. So, and here comes the ham-handed segue. You ready?
Yeah.
Speaking of wrestling, our listeners are wrestling with some questions, so let's get down to it.
Let's do it. Okay, first question is from an internal medicine doc in Virginia.
Yay, internal medicine docs. Thanks for keeping us healthy here in this cold and flu season.
It said, I want to pay off my student loans as soon as possible so I can slow down at work and spend more time with my growing family. I have $60,000 in cash, and I need $200,000 more to clear my student loans. If I get really aggressive with my student loan payments, I think I can have them paid off in 3 to 4 years. Should I invest my cash and use the investment returns to pay them off even faster? Yeah.
Well, that assumes that you get positive returns over the next 4 years, which has usually been that's been a pretty good probability in the past. But I mean, I don't know if you looked at the headlines lately, but I think all bets are off.
Yeah, right. Yeah,
whether you like it or you don't like it, no matter who you voted for, I think things are changing. And I personally would not invest money that I think I'm going to need in the next 3 or 4 years.
That's right. Yeah, I think this comes from a good place. Like, I think this is the right goal for the right reasons, but it's sort of short-term thinking, and I guess like squirming. And I know this feeling because I did this. I didn't have $260,000 of loans, but compared to my income, it was pretty close to that, about 100% of my income. And I squirmed and wrestled with this and looked at budgets every day, tried to work extra, got 2 jobs. I did all that. Yeah. And all so that I could pay them off like 1 or 2 years faster.
Yeah.
And then
in this case, what I hear though is like, I'm going to work really, really, really hard for the next 4 years so I can spend more time with my family.
Yeah.
Well, having experienced this, having kids that are in their early 20s, I can tell you that the further you go, the less valuable that time is with your kids. Their values are formed by the time they're age 6 or 7. And so if your kids are 2 and you spend four years at work and you're not seeing them, then those values are formed by the time you show back up on the scene, right? So you said this before on the show, don't be in such a hurry. I mean, like, what is the big hurry to pay off the student loans, right? I
Yeah.
mean, I know the juice is running, right? But if you think about the 6 or 7% interest rate, I guess that student loans are running at these days, and you compare that to the compound effects of spending time with your kids, right? I mean, time with your kids is paying like 25 or 50% interest, like real human interest in attention. And in my mid 50s, I'm looking back on my life and I'm thinking, how did I do? And I'm not looking at my bank balance. I'm looking at the relationship that I have with my children and the rest of my family. And, I feel like I have the things that money can't buy because I did pay for them, but I paid with attention. And so when I hear this, it makes me sad because I'd give my right finger to be able to go back and spend one more day changing diapers and squeezing feet poking out of onesies, right?
Mhm.
And this listener is going to miss that because they're in a hellfire hurry to pay off their student loans.
Yeah. Well, luckily for them, I hope they're not going to miss that because I'm talking to them a lot.
Yeah, good,
So,
good.
but yeah, that's exactly the experience that I went through. I was just lucky enough to go through this turmoil before children, but doctors generally aren't. I'm not a doctor. I didn't go to school as many years. So by
Yeah,
the time I had my student loan staring at me, I was 22. So for physicians, is get the best way to do this is to not forget about student loans, not care about them, but integrate them with your plan and pay them off in a reasonable amount of time. A lot of work left, a lot of life left,
yeah.
one
Folks,
step at
our,
a
our,
time.
our, mission here, this is
Mhm.
like, we have a written leadership statement. We talk about this every time we have a team huddle on Tuesday mornings at 10 Pacific. We always begin that with our mission. And our mission is to help the people who work here at Physician Family become better versions of themselves while we help the physician families we serve retire without regrets. And if you're spending too much time at work, and you can strike the balance any way you want to, but if you're spending too much time at work, or you're spending time at work when you should be spending that particular unit of time at home during a critical time, you will have regrets later in life. You will retire with regrets. So, yeah, we're financial people. Yes, Kyle's our investment guy, and we do very much care about the bottom line. We're not insensitive to interest payments, but I have friends. I have friends who are doctors. I know folks that are docs who did not invest in their family at the appropriate time, and they do have real regrets. And so, if you listen to us, that won't be you. But it ain't all about money. It's about life.
That's all right. All right. Next question comes from a double doctor family in Illinois. We're on track with our financial plans and still have extra money. Should we consider diversifying even more beyond the index funds we buy every month? We are thinking about an investment property or REITs.
Wow, I just got off my soapbox.
Yeah, get back on.
No,
No?
no, no. I mean, no. Generally, no. I mean, let's think about this. Let's tick this off. So, uh, some folks have heard about Warren Buffett. Others have not heard about him. He's like the wealthiest self-made person in America, and he started investing in stocks when he was a kid, right? And so his company, Berkshire Hathaway, also buys the stocks of publicly traded company. Famously, Coca-Cola, I believe they also own Apple and some other companies like that. But you know, I looked one time. Somebody asked me, should I invest in real estate? And I was like, what do the rich people do? What do the people who've got money do? And so I was like, okay, Warren Buffett, he's kind of a guy that some folks idolize. I'll look to see what he does. Well, yeah, he owns a company called Berkshire Hathaway Real Estate, but it's a real estate agency. They broker real estate. So he's not invested in real estate. He's not owning a whole bunch of properties, and he's not doing the Blackstone thing where he goes up and buys chunks of neighborhoods. All of his money essentially is invested in stocks, mostly U.S. stocks and bonds. Inside Berkshire Hathaway, they have something on the order of $300 billion invested in U.S. treasuries, right? So one of the richest people in the world invests exclusively in stocks and bonds outside the very modest home that he holds in Omaha, not super far from Illinois. If they can do it, you can do it. And I mean, these days, investing in US stocks is it's just damn near free. I mean, I think I looked and it was the rate on one of the Vanguard index funds is like 3 basis points, 0.03%. And I think that's like $30 on $100,000 a year, right?
Mhm.
So it's cheap, it's almost free, it's super easy to do this. And I think because it's so easy, a lot of docs are like, it's got to be more complicated than this. But the fact is, it doesn't have to be more complicated than that, ever.
You know what's interesting to me is that this question comes up when people have extra money a lot. Like, oh, I'm comfortable with stocks and bonds, but now that I got real money, I want to make real investments. Like,
Mhm.
what is that? If it's good enough to retire you from work and send your kids to college,
Yeah.
why isn't it good enough for your extra money? And I don't really know where that comes from. It's just maybe it feels like uh, I don't know, casino money, but
Or
I wouldn't want it.
maybe it's I've told my kids, I said, look, if you go to school, you go to high school and get good grades, and then you go to college, you get your undergraduate degree and you get good grades. And then you go to graduate school and you get your degree and get good grades. And you keep going like that, you're going to become one of two things, a college professor or a doctor,
Mhm.
right? I think this is in the physician's psyche that there's always something next. I've conquered this, so I got to move on to something else. Of course, there's hot tub banter where you're talking to your buddies about what you're investing in, what they're investing in, and there's a little one-upsmanship that goes there, right? Because I mean, let's face it, if they're on track and they've got all this extra money, they could accelerate that and change their family tree, but it's not necessary for them to do, cartwheels when they're finishing the finish line.
Mhm.
So I'll give you an example. I spoke with a client yesterday, someone who's relatively new to us, and we're talking about what to do with their portfolio, and we're looking at reshaping it. I was like, oh, taxable account, I see you got some gains here. I said, do you have any losses to carry forward? And the guy kind of hung his head. He's like, yeah, I do. I got cute. And I was like, what does that mean? And he says, well, I've got a couple $100,000 worth of loss carry forwards from some non-traditional investments that I made. He said, I learned my lesson. And I thought, I wish everybody could hear this.
Mhm.
I wish everybody could hear that. I mean, it's the modern investment, it just literally vanished, right? And so has a tax loss carry forward. And guess what? He's going to use that loss carry forward to offset gains in ordinary mutual funds, right? So, I mean,
Yeah.
it's not hard. It is not hard. And because it is easy, so many people want to complicate it, but it's not.
Mhm.
Sometimes the simplest thing to do is the thing to do.
Okay.
Stepping down from the soapbox.
All right. This one should be less soapboxy.
Good. I'm
Emergency
tired.
medicine, emergency medicine doctor in Georgia. We switched over to a high deductible health plan, so I can open an HSA now. I was told I can open one with whomever I choose and will fund it myself. Any specific recommendations on which company I should open it through? So most people don't know this because when you have a high deductible health plan, usually it's attached to an HSA that you can do, through your paycheck at work.
Yeah.
And so it just comes with, HSA Bank or whoever your work chose, and they're usually pretty reasonable. But if your work doesn't offer one, you can just go open up an HSA anywhere. Yeah.
Yeah. I think the assumption here is that I have to do it at work because my 401k is at work and I can't just do my 401k anywhere I want to. But the
Mhm.
difference between an HSA and a 401k is there's no restrictions on HSAs. You can take money out of them anytime you like. And as a result, you can move them around anywhere you want to, which also means
Mhm.
you can start them anywhere you want to.
Mhm.
Yeah. So I think we have been through not less than four different HSA providers as a company trying to figure out how to get this right over the past 8 years or so.
Mhm.
Um, Ultimately, we found out that Fidelity, they launched a no-fee health savings account. So we put money at Fidelity. I've had one there. It was a pretty good experience, but it still is a brokerage account. So, the HSA money goes in there. And once it goes in, you have to place a trade to invest it, right? And Fidelity's got pretty good lineup. So, I mean, I'm comfortable with it. But the downside really is not that it's Fidelity, but that it's a brokerage account. And, brokerage accounts, money goes in, they have to tell the money what to do. And if you're contributing to it on a monthly basis, then that's, you can automate it, but it's not easy. Okay.
Mhm.
Um, we have United Healthcare at the company, and they have Optum, and so I have an Optum health savings account. The cool thing about that is when the company puts money into it, it goes to work immediately, right? So
Mm.
that's easy peasy. I have used Lively recently for a small contribution. The process of opening the account was super easy. Everything was really slick, and I learned about that from a client who was using Lively. Um, it kind of it kind of depends on, like, if your employer is making regular contributions to a health savings account at work, you probably would want to look there first because it's going to be convenient. And if you have extra money to put in, let's say they're putting in $1,000 a year and you want to put in another, three, five, six, seven, $8,000, then that's probably your best bet. The investments may not be perfect, but being invested in a less than perfect investment is better than not being invested at all, right?
That's right.
So
Yeah.
I would look more at convenience first, and then, if you have a big account with maybe $100,000 in it, then transfer the lion's share of that to some place where it is going to be very efficiently invested.
Yeah. And that Fidelity account has really low fees and all that. So it
No
really is
fees.
just, yeah,
Yeah,
no fees.
yeah.
Really is just convenience versus kind of the more perfect investing. But I don't, I actually see quite a few people leave HSAs uninvested,
Hmm.
which is why we're saying this. It's like, once again, we do care about how good your investments are and the fees, but more important than that is that you're actually invested.
Yeah.
So yeah, makes sense.
And more important than that is don't spend your HSA.
That's right.
We'll just say it again as a public service announcement. Don't
That's
spend
right.
your health savings account.
That's right. For retirement. All right. The last question comes from every doctor across the country. Ben, I think I've gotten this question 10 times in the last 2 weeks.
Okay. Every
Okay, so
physician said,
yes, every doctor wants to know, how much do most doctors spend and how much do they save? I'm writing plans left and right these days, Ben,
yeah.
and I think at least 50% of the time, someone says, I don't know, how much do most people spend? Oh, is that too much? Are we crazy spenders? But what's funny is they do usually spend in a similar range. So
Uh-huh.
I don't feel like it takes away to just tell them. But
Hmm.
at the end, so I'm going to tell everyone. Okay, I'll start with that. Um, and this is highly dependent on you. Like if you have kids, depending on where you live in the country, depending on how old
Yeah.
your kids are, like how big
And
your
give us a
mortgage is.
range. Give us a
Yeah.
range too, so that we
So,
can.
so the range pre-retirement, it's a big range because
Yeah.
highly different, but usually it's like 10,000 to
It is.
30,000.
Yes, that's 30 is exactly the number. It's 30 is like the high that
Yeah.
I've seen. Yeah. So
And
that's high
and
high cost of living area. That's a big
that's right.
house. That's kids going to private school. That's high end vacations, maybe a couple times a year, right?
Yeah.
And then I've seen as low as seven, which is no kids living in Missouri.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
I did a plan like that the other day.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, and I wanted to just say for the people spending usually like low 20s, normally they
Yeah.
feel really guilty about it. And
Hmm.
you are not alone. It is usually an expensive time of life, like childcare
Hmm.
time of life.
Yeah.
Just bought a house and interest rates weren't that great time of life. And when you really break it down, you're spending most of the time when I see people spending in the mid 20s, in retirement usually land around the average because you paid
Yeah.
off your mortgage, kids are out of the house, no more disability insurance payments. And so the average that we have seen for years is 10,000 to 15,000 in retirement.
Yep. Yeah.
It,
Yeah.
it
Keep seeing
it's
that
it's a
number.
number that seems to just not make sense with inflation, but I've dug
Yeah.
into these numbers hundreds of times and it's always 10 to 15.
Well, it's yesterday I was on a call with Chelsea and we were working over someone's retirement plan and I was just drilling down in it to see what's going on. And the figure they were targeting was $14,000 in retirement. And I thought that's nice and round. And Chelsea said, we actually did a spending organizer to get to that number. So I knew it was solid. But there are not less than three different ways to arrive at the amount of money that a physician spends. Okay. So there's direct observation, which is to get your credit card statements and your bank statements and see how much money you actually spent. Okay.
Mhm.
There's pro forma, which is to kind of figure out what your house payment is and what your other payments are and fill out an organizer to kind of come up with the total. And then we've actually had clients where we've gone both ways to see if there's a reconciliation between those, to see how close they are. And then there's spitballing, which is to say, most physicians spend 10 to 15,000. You live in a high cost of living area, so maybe you're on the higher end of that. The interesting thing is that if we do it pro forma, and I give them a sheet that has 10 different categories on it, and they write in numbers. If I add a category, an 11th category, they'll write in another number. So they're literally spending more on paper just because I added another category. So that tells you how sensitive this exercise is. you know, but at the end of the day, it doesn't matter how much you spend, it's how much you save that makes a difference. And if you're saving enough to be able to pay for yourself in the future, then, you can spend that money. You need to provide for yourself now and in the future. But no matter what, it's somebody's spending like $8,000 a month versus $25,000 a month. They all feel guilty.
They all feel guilty. I just met with a family that spends $6,000 a month, and they asked me if they could buy a house. I'm like, oh my gosh, yes.
Have you? And this is a legit question. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
have you in employee here at Physician Family? Have you ever worked with a family that said, in any way, I feel good about how much we spend? Long silence for a podcast.
Probably not. Probably not. I think that they say things like, I think we do okay, but they're still wondering. Then those are the people who spend peanuts. I
Yeah,
think we're doing okay. Like,
yeah,
that sounds to me like maybe you could spend more. So, um, you know, there's always guilt with spending.
yeah.
It's really funny to me because when I really go deep into spending, everyone wants to cut their grocery budget in half. Like, really? That's where we're starting? Food? Like,
Yeah. The
groceries?
fastest way to demoralize the troops is to cut their rations.
That's right.
That's horrible leadership. And if you're fighting a war or a financial battle,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. And so I'm
So
like, we don't touch grocery budget. But,
yeah,
you know, it, like you said, you can make a plan for any amount of spending. Now, where the guardrails are is your ability to save. So everyone wants to know, how much does everyone save? The short answer is, very few physicians save enough to retire really early.
yeah. No matter how
Very
much
few,
they make,
no matter
very
how
few.
much they make.
Yeah, we're talking
Um,
like high six, low seven figures of earnings to be able to retire early is what we typically see. But the funny thing about it is those folks tend to be specialists who absolutely love what they do and they never want to retire.
and I've seen, and you, they have to make a lot and spend like they're not a specialist, and then usually it can work out. So
Yeah.
usually folks don't save enough to retire really early. I generally, what I see right out of the gate is everyone's doing the easy stuff. They're filling up their 401ks, maybe an HSA, maybe, but usually spending it. And if I'm lucky, they're doing IRAs too. And that's possible if you to retire off that if you spend very little. But for the average person, it's not enough to spend $10,000 a month.
Yeah. All right. So
That's
with
how
that,
much
I'm going
people
to take
spend to
us
save.
out. So
All right.
if you're listening to this show and you have a friend, it's probably not you, but you have a friend who's got cash piling up in their checking account, and their tax person doesn't seem to have a clue about how to help them save taxes, and they're wondering how much they can really save. They want to feel good about saving so they can feel great about spending. That friend, you should send that friend to us. If that friend just happens to be you, it's okay to raise your hand. Go to physicianfamily.com, click that get started button. We can chat, see how things go. You can look at the website. You can see all of our prices fully disclosed as if we're selling canned goods, right? It's just crazy that you know what it costs, right? And it's pretty reasonable. So go to physicianfamily.com and check that out. And if you're not ready to start a relationship, go to physicianfamily.com/quiz and take the retirement wellness check. Until next time, remember, you're not just making a living, you're making a life.
Thank you for listening to the Physician Family Financial Advisors podcast. Are you getting all the tax breaks you really deserve? To find out, get your copy of the Overtaxed Doctor's Retirement Investing Checklist, available at physicianfamily.com/go. This show is for educational purposes only and is not personalized advice. Consult your tax advisor before taking action. All investments involve risk of loss. Past performance is no guarantee of future results. Read show notes for full disclosure.